By mid-1943, the Allied progression north along the Italian boot was stopped at the Gustav Line that spanned the width of the country. The main route to Rome passed along the Italian city of Cassino, which is around 80 miles south of Rome. The Allies were convinced the Axis defenders were using the Monte Cassino Monastery as an observation post. To break this stalemate, the Allies called upon the U.S. Army Air Forces to destroy the monastery. Since this failed to dislodge the German defenders, the Army Air Force was called upon again to destroy the Italian town of Cassino. The intent of this video is to review what led up to the carpet bomb attack of the town of Cassino, the results of the attack, and why it has been characterized as a spectacular failure even though the town got turned to rubble. This is an AI-free video. Look for this AI-free emoji in future video thumbnails. Although the channel usually covers gear, equipment, and tactics, this video is more of a long-form essay, case study, deep dive review. We will use period map, archived documents and footage, USAAF, and Fifth Army post-war evaluations of the battle in developing this video narration. Let me know if you wish to see more of this type of video. Sit down, crack a cold one, and enjoy. This map shows the Allied plan to breach the Gustav Line as of January 1944 from a declassified Fifth Army history document. The Fifth Army occupies the western part and the Eighth Army the eastern part of Italy. The linchpin town of Cassino is here, 80 miles south of Rome. The Allies landed at the port city of Anzio on January 20th and were to quickly move north to Highway 7 towards Rome. Highway 6 is the main road from Cassino to Rome. The Fifth Army needed to kick out the Germans and secure Cassino in order to continue up Highway 6 towards Rome. The battle lines as of November 15, 1943 and February 15, 1944, 3 months later. The Allies had established a beachhead at Anzio but never broke out like planned. They were holed up at Anzio for another 3 months until May 1944. Cassino was not taken as planned. The 5th and 8th Armies had been stuck at the Gustav Line for 3 months. February 15, 1944 is significant. This is the day the Abbey of Monte Cassino was bombed. This image shows the main features of the Cassino area from a 1962 U.S. Army document on wound ballistics. The Abbey of Monte Cassino is here, some 1,300 feet above the town of Cassino. The Cassino Castle is here. The caption reads, "The fight for the town of Cassino was the bitterest experienced by Allied troops in the entire Italian campaign." View from the Allied line. The Abbey of Monte Cassino is here, Cassino Castle is here, and the town of Cassino is here. Aerial view of the Allied position. The Abbey of Monte Cassino, Cassino Castle is here, and the town of Cassino is here. A view from the Abbey showing Highway 6, the town, the Cassino Castle, from a 1988 military history document on the Italian campaign. The sweeping view from the German soldier's perspective. The 1,400-year-old Abbey of Monte Cassino is considered a historical icon landmark. The U.S. believed the Germans were using its vantage location as an observation post. In December 1943, Eisenhower issued this memo stating that Allies will be fighting in a country with historical monuments. However, if a choice needs to be made between a monument destruction or Allied lives, the structure goes. This page describes the Abbey attack. It was attacked by B-17s, B-26s, and B-25s. A total of 576 tons of bombs were dropped. The Germans abandoned their positions or took refuge in underground cellars. Between the waves of bombers, ground artillery opened fire on the Abbey's position. 266 rounds from 240mm, 8-inch, 4.5-inch, and 155mm caliber guns. The Abbey was destroyed. Couple images of the Abbey of Monte Cassino in rubble after the bombing. This video describes the bombing of the Abbey on February 15, 1944.
When General Eisenhower visited the Central Front, it was 3 months since we had crossed the Volturno. We had advanced 12 miles in this sector, sometimes at the cost of a man a yard, and were facing Cassino, key to the strong Gustav line, which the Germans had orders to hold at all costs. Cassino lies on the northern slope of the Liri Valley, through which runs the Via Casilina, highway number 6. Possession of the valley and the mountains overlooking it from both sides would take us forward to the foot of the last mountains, barring our way to Rome. The Gustav line ran across the peninsula and was anchored at Cassino. To break the stalemate, we tried an end run, amphibious landings at Anzio and Nettuno. Back at Cassino, the fight continued. The Germans held an obvious advantage by their occupation of the Benedictine Abbey above the town. They were asked to abandon it and refused. We had no alternative but to bomb the Abbey to save soldiers' lives.
The bombing did little to dislodge the Germans. The stalemate continued, and an all-out carpet bombing of the town of Cassino was next. This image shows the town of Cassino with the castle hill located here. Although initial U.S. doctrine was to only bomb military-industrial targets, there were occurrences where cities were the target, as shown on this pie chart representing the tons of bombs dropped on target type from a July 1945 Air Staff Intelligence document. The USAAF dropped 47,615 tons of bombs on cities in the European theater. The town of Cassino provided the Germans an advantageous defensive position, as discussed in this 1945 History of the MAAF document. It lies along Route 6, the main road to Rome. An Italian general labeled it as a perfect defensive position. The little Rapido River in front of the town made for a formidable barrier to cross. The town was built with stone dating back to the Roman Empire, arranged for a stout defense. A tunnel ran under the town, which was more or less immune to bombing, where troops can shelter if under a bombing attack. The town backed up to a sheer mountain wall face, with the Monte Cassino Abbey 1,300 feet over and to the rear of the town. The valley in front of the town is swampy. Tanks must travel on roads. The only real road is Highway 6, which is well covered by German artillery guns. This German archive footage shows the Abbey attack and its effect.
Der deutsche Oberbefehlshaber Süd, Generalfeldmarschall Kesselring. Die Abtei von Monte Cassino, wie sie die Jahrhunderte überdauerte. Und nach der Zerstörung durch die angloamerikanischen Luftkämpfer. Nach dem Bombenangriff legten diese Schänder der europäischen Kultur das Feuer schwerer Artillerie auf die Trümmer der Benediktinerabtei. Das ist geblieben. Der Abt von Monte Cassino auf dem Wege nach Rom.
The Germans deployed 4,000 to 5,000 of their elite 1st Parachute Division troops. This image shows the parachute soldiers. They can be readily identified by the brimless helmet seen here and here. Their division commander described the situation to his troops on February 15, 1944, the day of the Abbey bombing. The world press is aware of the caliber of the troops holding the line at Cassino. The Pope has intervened due to the Abbey's destruction. Holding the Gustav line at Cassino has become an affair of political importance. When U.S. troops are weakened, they throw British and Indian troops in the front line. He is convinced the German parachute division holding the town are the finest in the world. Allied commanders decided to pulverize the town by both aerial and artillery bombardment. This bombardment attack would be followed by an immediate attack by infantry and tanks. Once weather permitted, the troops would pull back 1,000 yards from the town, and the aerial bombardment would start. USAAF would deploy every available bomber. Once the aerial bombardment and artillery barrage stopped, the town and Abbey would be attacked and taken over by Allied ground troops. While the Allied troops overran the town, bombers would attack further ahead with the hopes of reaching the Gustav line the same day. One issue that was not well understood is the safe pullback distance from the bombing zone to the Allied ground troops waiting to pounce once the bombing and shelling stops. This page from a 1945 8th Air Force document on the tactical use of bombers indicates the minimum safe bombing distance to Allied troops is 3,000 yards or 1.7 miles. The Allied troops were well within this distance at 1,000 yards during the Cassino attack. The aerial bombardment of the town was strictly a ground force concept. The Mediterranean Allied Air Force had strong reservations on the effectiveness of an attack. General Aker pointed out the craters developed from bombs would make it impossible for the tanks to traverse the terrain. The New Zealand commander countered this point, indicating bulldozers would fill in these craters ahead of the tanks, so no worries. This clip shows a type of bulldozers operated by the Allies in Italy. 9 days before the March 15, 1944 attack, General Acre wrote General Arnold indicating ground forces must attack swiftly after the bombardment stops, otherwise the bombing is a wasted effort. The attack started on March 15, 1944. Bombing weather was ideal and the ground was dry. The first bombs fell from B-25s at 8:30 a.m. Bombing continued until noon. All bombers dropped 1,000-pound general-purpose bombs tail-fused for a .025-second detonation after impact. The altitude of release was set between 15 to 16,000 feet for B-17s and B-24s, and 7 to 9,000 feet for B-25s and B-26s. They approached the town perpendicular to the front line. No enemy fighters or ground flat guns attacked the bombers. The target area was a 1,250-foot radius with the aim point at the town center. The medium bombers concentrated on the town's north and the heavy bombers on the town's south. The zones were attacked alternately. This image shows a comparison of the 250, 500, and 1,000-pound class size general-purpose bombs. B-17s and B-24s can carry a maximum of 6 of these bombs internally, whereas a B-26 can carry 4 and a B-25 3 from a 1945 tactical planning document. This page from a 1945 Bombs and Fuses document outlines characteristics on a cutaway of the M65 1,000-pound class general-purpose bomb. The bomb is 67 inches in length, 18.8 inches in diameter, with a half-inch casing wall thickness. The bomb's weight equates to 990 pounds when filled with 558 pounds of TNT. The AN-M102 tail fuse is armed to detonate the bomb .025 seconds after target contact. This chart shows the level of destruction of various general-purpose size bombs can inflict on a row of brick buildings. The damage from the 1,000-pound class bomb is here. This page represents the crater size expected from general-purpose bombs for tail fuses set to detonate .01 and .025 seconds after contact from a 1945 bomb specification report. A crater size with a 45-foot width and 12-foot depth is expected for each of the 1,000-pound bombs striking soil. These bombs will also perforate 1.5 to 2 feet of concrete depending on the concrete strength based on this table from a 1945 terminal ballistics data document. Bombs dropped from B-17s traveling at a true airspeed of 200 miles per hour at an altitude of 16,000 feet will contact the ground at a speed of 950 feet per second at an angle of 15 degrees from the normal direction. Let's take a look at footage of the town's bombing.
1944. This is where our winter offensive stopped. Peaceful-looking hills, aren't they? Something like the hills back home. But the countryside of Cassino has helped the Germans build the toughest barrier we'd hit up to mid-May 1944. By mid-January 1944, we and our allies had cleared the enemy from the mountains east of Cassino and had drawn up to the east side of the Rapido Valley. The Allies faced a river, minefields, and barbed wire, all covered by enfilading machine gun fire. Stalemate still existed. The Germans filtered back into their positions on Mount Cassino, reinforced their strongholds in the town. Over Route 6 and through tunnels from the Ducal Palace, supplies streamed into the Nazi Green Devil Parachute Division, clinging to the amphitheater. The Colosseum, the Ducal Palace, the railroad station, the Hotel des Roses, the Yellow House, the Continental Hotel, Castle Hill, and Hill 165. These points were ordered to resist to the last man. The of our lines was a beehive of activity. Troops and M4 Shermans moved up, and at every airfield in the Italian theater, planes were being ready to wipe a city off the map. .155 long toms were dragged by M4 prime movers into their positions. The positions were carefully chosen to keep down the chance of detection by enemy air or ground observation. The crews were ready, eager. This was the kind of show they had trained for,
training that blended these guns completely with landscape. And at last, the 240 howitzer, emplaced with the help of a crane and a prime mover improvised out of an obsolete Sherman tank. Emplacing one of these giants was a specialist job, and every man of the 32 in this section knew each move he had to make, from establishing the line of fire before the howitzer was mounted to inspecting it after the operations were finished. 0830, March 15. Again, we took to the air. First, the mediums. They came from Sardinia, Corsica, everywhere. The heavies of the Strategic Air Force, B-24s, B-17s. 1,400 tons in 4.5 hours. But nothing was finished. When we stormed what was left of the town, we found that rubble made good concealment for the enemy. Debris made good roadblocks against our tanks. The Nazis' return fire was as strong as ever. We were stopped.
It is clear in the footage a massive volume of debris is thrown up during the detonation of the 1,000-pound bombs. Most of the debris is coming from the craters. Image after the bombing. The destroyed Abbey is here, and the destroyed town is here. The medium bombers were both better in maintaining their time schedule and bomb placement accuracy than the heavy bombers. Bomb accuracy of the subsequent bomb groups was hampered by the dust and debris thrown up from the first group's bombs detonating in the town. Dust and debris will dramatically limit aim point visibility of the following bomb groups, as shown on this table from a 1943 8th Air Force bomb accuracy report. The first bomber group over the target will place 23.4% of their bombs within 1,000 feet of the aim point. Second group, 16.3%, third at 9.9%, fourth at 7.8%, and fifth and over at 4.2%. This image represents smoke and debris from a bombing sortie. The follow-on bombardiers would likely just drop their bombs in the middle of the smoke and debris source. It does not appear the bombers targeted the aim point by offset or radar bombing, which can compensate for a limited visibility aim point. Bombing accuracy was also affected by the green heavy crews of the 15th Army Air Forces. Some bomb groups missed the town entirely, and others struck the surrounding areas and Allied positions, killing 17 Allied troops. The ground troops should have been farther back from the town. In all, 1,171 tons, or 2,342 1,000-pound bombs were dropped by 503 heavy and medium bombers. Between noon and 2, the Allies opened up with an artillery barrage of around 196,000 rounds of artillery projectiles fired from 890 artillery pieces. The distribution of artillery fire is listed on this table, including the gun caliber size, number of guns, and rounds fired. In an interview, General Aker pointed out, the experience of the Cassino attack is similar to attack events of World War I. Sustained artillery barrages seemed to totally wipe out targets. Then the attacking ground forces faced stiff opposition as the enemy, which had taken shelter during the barrage, only to reappear and hold their ground. Even with questionable bomb strike accuracy, there is no question the city of Cassino was destroyed. Images from a P-38 recon plane and images after its capture in May 1944 showed the city was flattened. Some stone building walls stood, but overall the town was rubble. The town of Cassino prior to the attack and after the bombing and artillery attack. More images of the town of Cassino after the attack and/or capture. This image shows the level of destruction of the town, Castle Hill, and the Monte Cassino Abbey, another view of the carnage after the town was taken. Around 950 German 1st Parachute Division troops were in or around the town during the attack. Most of the troops pulled back into caves at Monte Cassino or in the tunnels under the town and just sat out the bomb and artillery attack. For every one of the 950 German paratroopers in or near the town, the Allies expended 2.5 1,000-pound bombs and 206 artillery projectiles. This page bluntly evaluates the Battle of Cassino from an Office of Air Force History document, Volume 3. The failure to take the town proved two things. The attack turned the defending town into rubble, temporarily stunned the enemy, but created craters and obstacles which impeded Allied ground forces. The Allies pulled back 1,000 yards from the town, which was not far enough given that some were killed during the bombardment. To be safe, they should have pulled back 3,000 yards. This may have led to the slow ground attack after the shelling stopped at 2 o'clock. A big takeaway from the bombing of Cassino is that the follow-on ground forces must attack immediately, aggressively, and with an overwhelming force. This did not occur following the artillery attack. Tanks could not be deployed due to blocking craters and rubble. The craters were filled with water. Engineers could not do their work filling craters and moving debris until it was safe, but tanks and supporting infantry could not advance until the roads were clear, hence the dilemma. Superior Allied infantry was nullified by German usage of terrain and dispersion. From March 15 through the 26th, 1944, the New Zealand Allied forces suffered 2,106 casualties. The mass attack on the town of Cassino did not lead to a breakthrough of the Gothic line as everyone had hoped. It is considered a spectacular failure in the misapplication of air power as artillery. The overall plan failed, even though the town of Cassino was pulverized. It failed because ground troops did not aggressively attack the destroyed town after the air and artillery attack as planned. Ground forces expected complete German weakness after air and artillery attack. This did not occur. Allied ground forces attacked with too little and too late. Palmer studied the distribution of wounds during the Cassino town battles and listed them in this chart. This is interesting to me. Of 100 casualties, 42 were from German artillery, 31 mortars, 3 from artillery and mortars, 13 landmines, 9 hand grenades, 1 machine gun, and 1 rifle. So during the town battle, German artillery and mortars accounted for 38 times the number of Allied casualties as machine gun or rifle fire. General Aker summarized the principal lessons from the Cassino town attack. This includes: bombing can assist in capturing a strongly defended target, but cannot do it independently. Its effects will be similar to prolonged, concentrated artillery fire. Bombers can bring more explosives to the battle than artillery. Bombing cannot be relied upon to reduce structures to dust, though. Some walls and structures may still stand, which can be used as defensive positions. Defenders taking cover underground during the bombing attack will likely re-emerge, not affected by the bombing. Bombing will hamper tank movement by craters and rubble. This impedes Allied movement through these areas. The town of Cassino was finally taken 2 months after the bombing on May 18, 1944. It was outflanked on both sides, not by a frontal armor attack. The advances were possible by the proper use of air power. Operation Strangle was used to assist in its capture by reducing the Germans' rear area supply lines through air interdiction. A German general commanding the 26th Panzer Division in Italy was asked during a post-war interrogation about the effects of both air and artillery bombardments on the German troops from this January 1946 interrogation narration document. The effects of air bombardment on troops is not as effective as portrayed. Those who have experienced long-duration ground artillery attacks are not really affected by a 15-minute air attack. He knows it will be over soon, whereas ground artillery attacks may last for hours. He will just sit out the air attack with little effect on his morale, like the Cassino town attack. Let's go back to the battle line maps to place the importance of the Gothic line stalemate into perspective. Keep your eye on the town of Cassino. The Allies reached the Gothic line back in November 1943. The Abbey of Monte Cassino was bombed 3 months later on February 15, 1944. The Anzio beachhead was established. No battle line movements, though. The town of Cassino was bombed 1 month later on March 15, 1944. 2 months after the town bombing on May 15, still no movement at either the Gothic line or the Anzio beachhead. The town finally fell on May 18, 1944, and the Allies pushed through the Gothic line. The Allies entered Rome on June 4th and the June 15th battle lines. Unfortunately, this event was overshadowed by the D-Day landings on June 6, 1944. The battle map on May 1, 1945. Germany surrenders 6 days later on May 7, 1945. This is a modern-day map image of Cassino. The rebuilt Monte Cassino Abbey is here, an overhead view of the Abbey. The story here is how 4,000 to 5,000 Germans held back the Allies on the Gothic line for 6 months. If you found this Cassino case study battle narration informative, interesting, and worthy of your time, please consider supporting the channel by liking, commenting, and/or subscribing to World War II U.S. Bombers.